Every day, we are confronted with the darker aspects of the world around us, witnessing acts of cruelty that often defy understanding. Such harsh realities are an unfortunate part of life, yet they demand our attention. As someone immersed in the world of crime, I aim to share the most shocking stories and explore what motivates individuals to commit such acts. I am Michael, and today I present another extraordinary true crime case. It was a peaceful morning on the 24th of February, 2023, until chaos erupted in a home in Bamfield. Shouts and screams echoed from an upstairs bedroom, soon followed by the sound of gunfire. When law enforcement arrived, they encountered a scene that defied immediate comprehension. 2 bodies, a knife, and a story that seemed inconsistent. What truly transpired that day? How did events spiral so wildly out of control? As investigators delved deeper, they uncovered startling secrets that transformed the case into a complex web of betrayal, conspiracy, and murder. In 2003, at the age of 18, Christine began her studies at Quinnipiac University in Connecticut, aiming for a degree in nursing. During her freshman year in 2004, she met Brendan Robert Banfield, and their relationship quickly blossomed. Christine graduated in 2007, and the following year Brendan proposed. Their engagement lasted nearly 2 years before they married on June the 12th, 2010. Christine was a dedicated nurse, often working 16-hour night shifts. Yet she found fulfillment in her demanding profession. On social media, she occasionally shared her fitness journey at a local gym, where Brendan sometimes worked out with her. Friends noted Brendan's unwavering support, encouraging her during workouts and praising her progress. Christine once expressed how happy she felt when Brendan motivated her, especially after she experienced positive changes from her healthy routine. Brendan, more reserved online, rarely shared personal details. He worked as a federal agent in the tax department, investigating fraud and tax evasion. Together, Christine and Brendan built a life that reflected their shared efforts and deep bond. They enjoyed attending football games, hosting parties, taking vacations, and traveling abroad, embodying the image of a typical American couple with youthful dreams of a bright future. Initially living in New York, they later moved to Herndon, Virginia, in a home valued at over $1 million in one of the city's most desirable neighborhoods. Financially secure, they enjoyed comfortable lives supported by good salaries. Their jobs sometimes required travel, which meant they were occasionally away at the same time. In one social media post, Christine mentioned leaving their dog at a pet hotel because both she and Brendan were traveling for work. In October of 2017, Christine, then 32, announced on social media that she was 3 months pregnant. On March the 30th, 2018, she gave birth to a daughter. From that point, her posts reflected her joy as a mother, sharing family photos and moments of happiness. In 2019, the Banfield family decided to participate in the Cultural Care Exchange Program, which allows foreign nationals to live with host families abroad, caring for children, studying, and receiving accommodation, meals, and a stipend. In April of that year, a young Brazilian woman named Amanda joined the family through the program. Over the next 2 years, Amanda developed a close bond with the Banfields, sharing photos of their trips, celebrations, and daily life, often referring to herself as part of the family. Her relationship with Christine was particularly strong. Amanda's stay ended in 2021, but she extended her time by 6 months due to global travel restrictions. The Banfield family then sought another Brazilian au pair, meeting 23-year-old Juliana Perez Magalhães, a nurse from São Paulo. Juliana arrived in late 2021 after completing the application process. While her bond with the family was not as close as Amanda's, it was still significant enough for the family to extend her stay for another year. Everything, however, changed on the morning of February the 24th, 2023, around 7:50 a.m., when the tragic events unfolded. On the morning of the incident, a brief emergency call was made from Juliana's phone, but it ended abruptly after 13 minutes. Shortly afterward, a second call was received, during which Juliana reported that a friend had been injured. Moments later, Brendan took the phone and informed the dispatcher that he had discovered his wife, Christine, with stab wounds in their upstairs bedroom, and had shot a man named Ryan. Police arrived within 10 minutes to find Ryan dead and Christine critically wounded. She was rushed to a nearby hospital, where she later died from her injuries. Fortunately, their 4-year-old daughter, present in the house at the time, was unharmed. Brendan was also hospitalized due to a leg injury sustained during the incident. Initial police reports identified the deceased man as Joseph Ryan, aged 38. According to early investigations, Ryan had allegedly broken into the Bamfield residence, attacked Christine with a knife, and was fatally shot by Brendan. At that point, no further details were released. After being discharged from the hospital, Brendan refused to speak with detectives or the media, while Juliana fully cooperated, providing a detailed statement and signing a formal account. Juliana recounted that she arrived at the Banfield home that morning for work and saw Joseph Ryan forcefully entering the residence. Panicked, she called Brendan, who was not at home, and asked for help. Brendan reportedly advised her to stay calm and assured her he would arrive shortly. Juliana waited outside for her safety until Brendan arrived, and together they entered the house, where they found Christine gravely injured. They also encountered Ryan, still inside. According to her account, a physical struggle ensued between Brendan and Ryan, during which Brendan managed to seize a firearm kept in the house and shot Ryan multiple times, killing him. Brendan later confirmed Juliana's version, asserting he acted in self-defense. However, a puzzling detail emerged from Juliana's statement. She mentioned arriving at the home early that morning to begin her work, which raised questions since house-sitters typically reside with their hosts. It remained unclear where Juliana had been before arriving at the house. For months, police withheld details of their investigation, choosing to keep their findings confidential. Meanwhile, neighbors reported seeing Juliana frequently at the Banfield residence, though it was uncertain whether she still lived there. She was often seen with the couple's daughter, fueling speculation that she might still be working as their nanny. By August of 2023, Juliana posted on social media that she was seeking a nanny position in the area, as house-sitters were generally not permitted to seek additional employment while on duty. Participation in the investigation indicated that Juliana was no longer involved in the case after more than 7 months of probing. Law enforcement officials meticulously gathered crucial evidence and forensic data to clarify the events. According to Juliana's own account to her family in Brazil, authorities concluded that Joseph Ryan had murdered Christine following a dispute, as they had allegedly been romantically linked. However, the case took a startling turn on October 19, 2023, when Juliana was unexpectedly arrested. She was caught off guard as police charged her with second-degree murder, asserting that she, not Brendan, had fired the fatal shots at Joseph Ryan. Investigators also found that Brendan was not at home during the shooting, contradicting earlier statements. Juliana was then detained at Fairfax County Detention Center. Initially, public opinion swayed in her favor, with many viewing her as a hero who defended the family that had welcomed her. Some sympathized with Brendan, believing he might have lied to protect Juliana, whose temporary visa status threatened her future in the country. Yet, later revelations cast doubt on her innocence. Authorities found no signs of forced entry at the Bamfield residence, suggesting Joseph Ryan may have entered willingly, possibly led in by Christine herself. Questions also emerged about whether Juliana had known Joseph Ryan before the incident. These disclosures dramatically shifted public perception, fueling online theories. The most prevalent suggested that Juliana and Brendan had been romantically involved and had staged the attack to eliminate Christine. It was speculated that a divorce would have forced Brendan to share assets with Christine, prompting them to frame Joseph Ryan as a scapegoat. Another popular theory proposed that Brendan and Juliana had been traveling together on the day of the tragedy and returned home to find Christine and Joseph confronting them. In this scenario, Joseph was believed to be a private investigator hired by Christine to verify her suspicions of an affair. A violent altercation then ensued, resulting in the deaths of Christine and Joseph. A third theory claimed that Christine and Joseph had been involved romantically, and Brendan, upon discovering their relationship, killed both in a fit of rage. Juliana, loyal to Brendan, allegedly covered for him and later began a relationship with him. During her first court appearance, Juliana testified that on the morning of the incident, Christine had given her and her 4-year-old daughter tickets to the zoo so she could have some alone time. Juliana claimed Christine planned to meet Joseph Ryan, whom she had met on a dating website. She also said she had forgotten her child's lunch and returned home to retrieve it, only to find an unfamiliar car in the driveway, and a man later identified as Joseph Ryan. Juliana, alarmed upon entering the house, immediately called Brendan, who instructed her to wait outside until he arrived. When Brendan reached the scene, they entered together. Juliana admitted to making the initial Divitzada call, but hung up quickly, unsure of what to say. To ensure her safety, she took Banfield's young daughter to the basement, while Brendan grabbed his firearm, preparing to confront whatever was happening. Moments later, noises from the upstairs bedroom drew their attention. Rushing to the room, they found Joseph Ryan standing over Christine, who lay naked on the bed. Joseph, still dressed, held a knife, and Brendan immediately aimed his gun at him, demanding he drop the weapon. Joseph responded with a threat to harm Christine if Brendan lowered his gun. What followed was a chaotic and terrifying scene. Joseph began stabbing Christine as Brendan fired his gun, but most shots missed, failing to stop Joseph's attack. Desperate, Brendan shouted to Juliana to retrieve another firearm stored in a safe in the bathroom. When Juliana returned, instead of handing Brendan the gun, she fired a fatal shot into Joseph's heart, ending the assault. They then called emergency services to report the incident. Juliana's defense argued that her actions were purely self-defense, but the prosecution painted a starkly different picture. During the hearing, they claimed Brendan and Juliana had been romantically involved for months, and that the entire event was premeditated. Prosecutors alleged that Brendan pretended to leave for work that morning, but stayed nearby, waiting for a call from Juliana. They suggested Joseph Ryan was lured to the Bamfield home under false pretenses, believing he was meeting Christine for a romantic encounter. It was claimed that either Brendan or Juliana created a fake Christine profile on a dating site to arrange the meeting. Friends and family of Christine, who later saw the conversations, described them as strange, noting the writing style did not match Christine's usual manner. On the day of the crime, Joseph reportedly arrived at the house and was greeted by Juliana, who explained there had been no forced entry. Soon after, he was ambushed by Brendan. The prosecution argued that the couple carefully planned the scene to eliminate Christine, possibly to prevent Brendan from splitting assets in a divorce and to secure a wealthy life with Juliana. A witness from a shooting range testified that Brendan and Juliana had visited the facility 2 months before the incident, and Brendan returned alone a month later to buy the firearm Juliana later used to kill Joseph. Investigators also revealed that both Brendan and Juliana replaced their cell phones just 4 days before the attack, which prosecutors viewed as further evidence of premeditation. Photos taken after Juliana's arrest showed significant changes to the home, especially the room where the events unfolded. Juliana's former residence was left vacant after her belongings, clothing, makeup, and personal items were moved into Brendan's bedroom. All photographs of Christine and Brendan with their daughter had been removed and replaced with pictures of Brendan and Juliana, some including the child. While Juliana's defense acknowledged the possibility of a romantic relationship with Brendan, they insisted it was not serious. They argued that both Brendan and Christine had been unfaithful, casting doubt on the prosecution's narrative of a carefully planned conspiracy. During his testimony, Brendan invoked the Fifth Amendment, refusing to answer questions that could incriminate him, offering only brief responses. The prosecution highlighted Juliana's attempt to obtain a new passport after her original was confiscated during the investigation, suggesting an intent to flee. Her defense explained that she was advised to apply for a replacement ID and emphasized there was no plan to escape. Nonetheless, the judge ordered Juliana to remain in custody until her trial, while Brendan was released but kept under investigation. Initially, Brendan admitted to shooting Joseph Ryan, but after forensic evidence proved Juliana had fired the fatal shot, he changed his account. The Banfield family's daughter was placed in the care of relatives as legal proceedings unfolded. On September 16, 2024, police arrested Brendan Banfield, charging him with first-degree murder of both Christine and Joseph. Prosecutors alleged that Brendan had conspired to kill them at the family's home, using a firearm during the crime. Although specific evidence linking Brendan directly to the murders was not disclosed, authorities revealed that he and Juliana had planned a trip to Brazil just days before his arrest. During his initial hearing, it was disclosed that Brendan's relationship with Juliana began in August of 2022, nearly a year after she started working for the family. At that time, Juliana was in a long-distance relationship with a boyfriend in Brazil. The prosecution presented evidence that a month prior to the murders, Brendan and Juliana traveled together to New York, staying in a hotel and attending a show. On the morning of the incident, Brendan claimed he left home at 7-Eleven and stopped at a McDonald's for coffee, a routine part of his commute. He stated that he received a call from Juliana around 7:37. Reports indicated that an unidentified man had entered the house. Brendan explained that he had rushed home, leaving his breakfast unfinished upon hearing the news. However, during the hearing, prosecutors played a brief recording of Juliana's initial Divatsot Odinist call, which lasted only 8 seconds. In the background, Joseph Ryan could be heard groaning in pain before the call abruptly ended. When questioned about this, Brendan claimed the call was dropped because they couldn't locate the phone after it fell. He also admitted instructing Juliana to retrieve a second firearm from a bathroom safe as a precaution. Instead of handing him the gun, Juliana used it to shoot Joseph in the heart. The sequence of events raised serious questions, especially since there was a 13-minute gap between Juliana's first and second calls. By the time of the initial call, Joseph was already injured, prompting investigators to wonder why it took so long to make the second call. Authorities suspect this delay was used to stage the crime scene. The prosecutor stated that Joseph's body was repositioned to make it look like he had been actively attacking Christine. Forensic evidence revealed that the knife found at the scene belonged to Joseph, who had brought it in a backpack. In conversations with someone he believed was Christine, Joseph had been encouraged to bring the knife, sharing an interest in certain fetishes involving pain and pleasure. The website where they communicated was focused on casual encounters and fetishes, providing a plausible explanation for the presence of the weapon. Paramedics responding to the scene noted multiple inconsistencies. Both bodies appeared to have been moved and repositioned, with Joseph's arms crossed and bloodstained in a manner inconsistent with the fatal chest wound he received. Furthermore, Brendan showed little concern for Christine's condition, repeatedly asking if Joseph was still alive, which investigators interpret as a sign of his fear that Joseph might survive and reveal the truth. Blood spatter analysis supported the staging theory, confirming that both victims had been moved after their injuries. This evidence, combined with text messages and witness accounts, began to piece together the events leading up to the crime. Before the incident, Joseph had confided in a friend about his online interactions with Christine, revealing that she claimed her marriage was open and that both she and her husband pursued extramarital relationships. Their conversations included explicit details, such as photos of items Joseph planned to bring, knives, cuffs, and belts, and his intention to cut Christine's pajamas with the knife, which matched the weapon found at the scene. The discovery of a torn pajama set in the bedroom initially pointed investigators toward a possible break in the case. However, they soon learned that Joseph had never communicated with Christine via phone or video chat, a detail that proved crucial. This absence of direct contact led authorities to suspect that the person behind the online profile was either Brendan or Juliana. Had Joseph spoken to Juliana, her distinct Brazilian accent would likely have aroused suspicion. Yet none of Joseph's friends recalled him mentioning such an accent. This discrepancy prompted investigators to consider that Brendan might have fabricated a backstory, perhaps claiming Christine had lived in Brazil to explain the accent. Friends who knew Joseph described him as a gentle, peaceful man who was shocked by the allegations. They believed he had been manipulated into a situation that ultimately resulted in his death, and they found it hard to believe he could have been capable of harming Christine. Between Juliana's arrest on October 19, 2023, and Brendan's detention on September 16, 2024, the two maintained consistent contact. A recorded conversation revealed Juliana questioning Brendan, saying, "I hope you're not staying with me just because you're afraid I'll turn on you." Brendan responded sharply, telling her to be quiet. This exchange, along with other evidence, deepened suspicion of their involvement. By late October, Juliana agreed to a plea deal to avoid a lengthy trial. She pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter and committed to testifying against Brendan at his upcoming trial scheduled for February of the following year. Prosecutors emphasized that her sentencing would depend heavily on her testimony and the outcome of Brendan's case. During her confession, Juliana disclosed how Brendan had orchestrated the entire plan. Their romantic relationship had begun in August of 2022, about a year after Juliana started working for the family. By fall of 2023, Brendan had expressed a desire to eliminate Christine and began plotting the crime. Using a fake profile on an adult fetish dating site, Brendan posed as Christine and initiated contact with Joseph Ryan. Over time, he lured Joseph into agreeing to a meeting at the family's home, instructing him to bring specific items, including a knife, to make the setup more convincing. Brendan then asked Juliana to speak to Joseph via a voice call on Telegram, pretending to be Christine. Although Juliana was hesitant, she ultimately went along with the plan. On the day of the incident, Brendan waited nearby after leaving the house under the pretense of going to work. He instructed Juliana to handle Joseph's arrival and to maintain the ruse. Juliana admitted feeling trapped and scared, but she said Brendan's control left her with little choice. She followed the plan, making the calls as instructed. However, Christine's phone went straight to voicemail because Brendan, before leaving that morning, had turned it off and hidden it in a kitchen drawer. Waiting at a nearby McDonald's, Brendan received Juliana's call and pretended to attempt to contact Christine, further complicating the deception. Christine, fully aware that her call would likely go to voicemail, decided to return to the house. She retrieved Juliana and the couple's young daughter before entering through the basement door. Leaving the child there, they proceeded upstairs to Brendan's bedroom. Brendan carried his service weapon, while Juliana held the firearm he had given her earlier that morning. Inside the room, they found Joseph holding Christine, who was unclothed. Brendan shouted a warning to the police before shooting Joseph in the head, causing him to collapse away from Christine. Juliana then made the initial Davidsotadinist call, during which Joseph's groans of pain could be heard, following Brendan's instructions. However, Juliana ended the call prematurely. Soon after, Brendan seized the knife Joseph had brought and stabbed Christine multiple times. Meanwhile, the Davidsotadinist operator attempted to call back, but Juliana did not answer. Noticing Joseph was still moving, Juliana fired the fatal shot into his heart, as later confirmed by the medical examiner. Brendan then staged the scene, repositioning Christine and Joseph's bodies to make it look as though Joseph had attacked Christine. Once the scene was arranged, Brendan directed Juliana to make a second Davidsotadinist call, claiming an intruder had broken in and assaulted Christine. When police and paramedics arrived, Brendan accompanied Christine to the hospital, while Juliana took their daughter to the police station. The subsequent events drew intense public scrutiny. Juliana's confession made it clear that she and Brendan had conspired to murder Christine and start a new life together. Brendan's trial is scheduled for February next year, with Juliana's sentencing to follow shortly after. Joseph Ryan's mother has avoided interviews, respecting the ongoing investigation, but she shared a heartfelt social media post after Brendan's arrest, expressing how painfully difficult life has been without her son. She also revealed that her hope for justice is what keeps her going. Both Christine's and Brendan's families are overwhelmed by grief and shock. Christine was laid to rest at Queen of All Saints Cemetery in Suffolk County, New York, while their 6-year-old daughter is reportedly in the care of close relatives. No details about Joseph Ryan's funeral have been made public. The families remain haunted by the tragedy, and the nation awaits justice to be served.